Hello. It's going to be a bit of a shorter video I'm recording right now, but I just want to mention the fact that Dead by Daylight might be getting a collaboration with Star Wars. There's a lot of talk going around recently about this collaboration because there was an interview recently where one of the developers for Dead by Daylight mentioned how they were kind of thinking, really thinking, about a collaboration with specifically Darth Vader as a killer in Dead by Daylight. Now that's pretty much all that's been said about this maybe possible collaboration. But what a lot of people are now discussing is whether or not Darth Vader would fit into Dead by Daylight as a killer. So I want to give my opinion. I'll just come straight at the bat, blunt answer, and say it right away. I think he'd be pretty cool in Dead by Daylight. The main argument people are bringing up about whether or not he would fit in Dead by Daylight is whether or not Darth Vader is scary as a character. But you need to look at it kind of from who already is in Dead by Daylight. For example, you've got Vecna from the game Dungeons and Dragons. Not a horror movie, not a horror series, not a horror game. It's just a board game. Vecna's in Dead by Daylight. Trickster is another one, another killer in Dead by Daylight. He's just a Japanese guy that throws knives. Not scary. And then you've got some other ones like Wesker, who's just a guy with glasses. He's not scary at all. So I don't really think there is an argument on whether or not he's scary enough to be in the game, because I don't think there's really a certain amount of scary you have to be a killer in Dead by Daylight, because there's plenty of stuff already in the game that's just not scary. However, one argument that is brought up that I somewhat agree with is whether or not Dead by Daylight becomes a kind of Fortnite. And what people are meaning by this is with the collaborations. Fortnite has tons of collaborations with anything from Star Wars to Street Fighter to Family Guy to what else have they done? Different animes to horror. And people don't want the same thing to happen to Dead by Daylight, where whenever they see a cool character, whether it's from a cartoon or whatever it's from, and they think they look cool, that they just throw them in the game. Because I agree, it shouldn't happen. So people are starting to worry that if they start putting people in like Darth Vader, who isn't from a horror movie or a horror game or anything like that, they're just a cool character, that then opens a flood portal of a bunch of other TV characters, movies characters, to just flood into Dead by Daylight and take over, which isn't what anyone wants. However, as for Darth Vader specifically, yeah, I don't see a problem with Darth Vader being in the game. I think he's a very cool character. They could have some very cool skins, like for example, him without the mask, because under his mask he looks really f***ed up. And I would still buy him, play him, and probably enjoy him, even though I've never fully sat through a Star Wars movie. I mean, there's like 90% of the Star Wars movies I've not even looked at. I can't even name a scene. I think there was a scene in the desert with C-3PO and what's the other little one called? R2-D2. I actually met the actor for R2-D2. Throw a picture up on screen now. Jimmy V, that's my guy. And if they do bring a Star Wars chapter to the game and they bring Darth Vader as a killer, what else can they bring? Because again, it would be a good chapter that they don't just want to say, yeah, here's a killer and here's maybe one survivor. Because you wouldn't want that, right? A few years ago, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, there was a Reddit post made and it was kind of fan-made Dead by Daylight kind of ideas for what should happen if Star Wars collaborates. And I've got to tell you, they look incredible. They look perfectly like how Dead by Daylight would introduce a killer. Like the actual look of the picture I'm putting up on screen looks great. So in the fan-made post, they've got obviously Darth Vader as the killer, then they've got 2 survivors, and then they've got a map. Now I think if they did release a Star Wars chapter, I don't know if they'd release 1 killer, 2 survivors, and a map. It seems like a lot. Like for example, with the new Five Nights at Freddy's one coming out, they've just released Springtrap as a killer and a map, right? They've not got any survivors. But then sometimes they might do a killer and 1 survivor. I think a killer, 2 survivors, and a map is quite a lot. But the more we can get, the better it is. So in conclusion, I think Darth Vader would make a good addition to Dead by Daylight. Even though he's not scary, I think he'd still get played, and even people who don't play Dead by Daylight, who might just like Star Wars, they see an opportunity to be able to play as one of these characters, they might get excited, they might head over to Dead by Daylight. Anyway, just a short video today because it's kind of popping off at the minute, and I just wanted to talk about it, give my opinion. That's it. Bye bye.